Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Board of Trustees, and all Mount Kisco residents here tonight. I'm glad people are so interested in this project. My family and I have lived in Mount Kisco for over 40 years. My children were raised and educated here. My wife, Helen, whom a number of you knew, passed away in 2003. I've lived and worked in Mount Kisco for all those years, retiring just this past February after practicing law in Mount Kisco for over 45 years. When I first started practicing law, one of my first legal matters was representing the owners of this Kisco Avenue property. And it was a goat farm, and there weren't any trees on it. And if you looked at it those years past, it's nothing like it is today. All of those trees that you see, as far as up as you can see, are new growth. We're not talking about historical trees here for 100 years. All right. And 95% of the trees are that new growth. The people here have described this as Kisco Mountain. I've always known it as Captain Merritt's Hill. And the highest point on that hill is 640 feet. Last time I checked, a mountain was quite a bit higher. So we're talking about one of the many hills in Mount Kisco. The people who have done a lot of research on this property have indicated in their report that there were 6 trees over 30 inches in diameter, and that they were on the summit. And I'll accept that summit being 640 feet high. Now, the majority of the property that's going to be developed on this proposal is on a plateau, which is on the Mountain Avenue side of the hill. And that is at 450 feet. So if they're going to build a building of 3.5 stories, the height of that building, and I'll exaggerate, will be anywhere between 50 and maybe can't possibly be 100 feet, but let's say 100 feet. So we add 100 to 450, we come to 550. The summit is 640. No one's going to see it unless you live on the top of Guard Hill or that area. And by the way, when Guard Hill was built, every tree on that hillside was taken down. And when the Chase was built, every tree on that hillside was destroyed. Now, you go to Guard Hill and you go to the Chase, they're beautiful. There are lots of trees planted, growing. Trees do grow. All right. So let's talk a little about who would actually see this. Very few people. And allow me to go into some of the numbers in regard to this project. All right. The hillside is comprised of, and this is what their research showed, 75 acres of woodland. All right. Of those 75 acres, 17 acres are going to be owned by the developer. Of those 17 acres, 11.4 or 5 are going to be disturbed. Now, after that disturbance, and that includes the foundations for the buildings and the roadway going up from Kisco Avenue. Now tell me, and I love Captain Merritt's Hill and the residences up there, but wouldn't it make more sense to have come in from Mountain Avenue than from Kisco Avenue and destroy all those trees and cost the developer a huge amount of money? But no, our planning board, in their wisdom, decided to force them to do that. So be it. They agreed. Right? And they're going to spend a ton of money doing it. Would have saved a lot of trees had it gone in from Kisco Avenue. But that's what our village of Mount Kisco decided to do, and the developer agreed. Right. Now, they've also done an inventory of the wildlife on the hill. And lots of birds, lots of animals, including a fox and a coyote. So people up there, don't let your cats out, because coyote and fox love them. All right? They didn't do an inventory of the mice or the deer or the mosquitoes or the ticks, because they're all there too. By the way, I'm an outdoor person. I fly fish, I upland bird hunt, I love the woods. I'll never cut a tree down that doesn't have to be cut down, but I won't stop development that's reasonable and logical. So getting back to the property, only 17 acres out of the 75 will comprise the project, and only 11.2 of the 75 will be disturbed, so leaving 63 wooded acres on that hillside. Lots of area for hiking trails, for bird watching, for everything else. The opponents claim that there could be flood and mudslides. Well, Curtis Instrument's been there for a long time, built that second building further up on the hillside, and BMW built that huge complex right next door to it. None of that's occurred. Now, having said that, I love trees. If you went up and saw the area where I live on Laurel Drive, you'll see a lot of old trees, which we don't cut down. The project calls for the removal of 1,932 trees. That's the data provided. The state DOT, in improving the Kisco Avenue, Sawmill River Road intersection, cut down anywhere from 3,500, and someone told me 6,000 or more trees. I don't know, but 3,500 certainly is a low number. And if you've driven by it lately, there are new trees planted, there are shrubs, there are flowers, there's grass. It's a lot safer, and it's an improvement to the area. Okay, let me go on. Now let's talk about some of this applicant and its predecessor. They've been before this village board since 2006. Actually before, but let's start at 2006. The final environmental impact statement was accepted as complete in 2009. The finding statement was adopted in 2009. Who was here opposing it then, and for what reasons? Why didn't the applicant have an opportunity to discuss the issues that have been raised in the last couple of months? That's not fair. Right? Now, there are also a number of other things that the developer did, and I'll read from a statement that I didn't prepare. On April 22, 2009, the village board approved the zoning map change from conservation district to planned residential development and zoning text amendments related to building length, height, parking requirements, and the village board also reaffirmed the finding statement, which were approved, right? Which said the property was environmentally safe to develop. 7, since the adoption of the finding statement in accordance with a lease with the village, the buildings on the adjacent town and country property have been demolished and removed. So here's an applicant who knocked down buildings to live up to the agreement that he had with the village. All right. 8, for the purposes of making a secret comparison and evaluating the Hearth and Mount Kisco with the Westchester residents, which was the prior applicant, they submitted a technical memorandum dated March 25, 2013 and June 11, 2013. comparing the proposed action as amended. Did anyone see that or review it? It discloses a lot. They've reduced the size of the project in many ways. 9, the planning board as lead agency determined that the hearth would have the same or fewer environmental impacts when compared to the previous applicant. 10, the applicant has continued to compare the proposed action as it progresses through the site plan review process to the secret findings. See technical memorandum dated November 25, 2013 and April 28, 2017. So the village was acting affirmatively in regard to this applicant to approve it until just recently. Let me just check my notes. Oh, as a tie-in to the recently talked about proposal to change the zoning on another property at Radio Circle to allow senior citizen house or senior residence housing there, let's compare the two sites. One that has no review, the other one 10 years of review. The Kisco Avenue site historically was the location of a senior residence, the Swiss Home. All right. My mother resided at the Swiss Home. There are two ladies here tonight who cared for her there. All right. My dear friends. All right. One plays great piano too, by the way. And that site is environmentally clean and approved. The Radio Circle site is located on, you know what? The old New York City sewage treatment plant. It's a great big cesspool, right? It's had no environmental reviews, but the property next to it has been determined to be contaminated, with a likelihood that that contamination spilled over onto adjoining properties. 2, the Kisco Avenue site has no wetlands. The Radio Circle site is basically in the middle of a wetland and buffers. 3, the Kisco Avenue site has all planning board approvals and environmental review approvals and is only waiting for the village board's final action. All right. The Radio Circle site does not allow for senior citizen residences. 4, the Kisco Avenue site has experienced over 10 years of planning board and legal actions, including a federal court-approved stipulation of settlement after litigation was initiated the last time, ordering the sale of 18 acres of village land to the senior residents for $3.5 million. And the village has already received, was it $1.2 million or $1.5 million? I'm not sure, but over $1 million from the developer that they've had for a considerable period of time. And as I understand it, they're ready and willing and able to pay the balance. The Radio Circle site has no history and has a Frito-Lay warehouse across the street from it, or down the street from it. 5, while the Kisco Avenue site has a large and continuous history, the Radio Circle site has interested parties with ties to Mount Kisco seeking to negate years of discussion and review and compromise and settlement, which related to the Kisco Avenue site. And finally, as a retired attorney with over 50 years of legal experience, a lot of which was real estate litigation and appellate real estate litigation, there's an underlying principle of law that the courts follow. And that principle is parties in a real estate transaction must deal in good faith and deal fairly with one another. All right? I'm not a friend, or nor have I ever represented these people. But when you look at all of this, I'm concerned that the village is going to be exposing itself to a tremendous amount of litigation because I think the applicants are going to raise the issue of not acting in good faith on the part of the village and not dealing fairly. And the only ones who are going to make money, and I'm retired, are the attorneys. And a judge is going to point to both parties and say, settle it. And the end result's going to be, it's going to be built. After years and years more, and nothing but attorneys making a ton of money. That's not what this village is all about, folks. Thank you.